There is a man who failed his college entrance exam twice. He was rejected from over 30 job applications. He applied to work at KFC and was turned down. He had no connections, no money, no technical background, and no reason whatsoever for anyone to believe he would one day become one of the most powerful businessmen on the planet. His name is Jack Ma, and this is the story of how he built an empire, how a single speech nearly destroyed it, and how the Chinese government made sure he would never forget who was really in charge. Jack Ma was born in 1964 in Hangzhou, China. Growing up, he was small, scrawny, and constantly got into fights with bigger kids at school. He was not a good student. Mathematics was his worst subject, and he struggled through most of his education. But there was one thing he was gifted at, and that was talking to people. As a teenager, after President Nixon visited Hangzhou, and the city became a popular destination for foreign tourists, Ma started showing up at the main hotel every morning to offer free tours of the city. He did this not out of generosity, but because he wanted to learn English from the tourists he guided. One of them even gave him the nickname Jack, and it stuck for the rest of his life. After finally passing the entrance exam on his third attempt, Ma earned a degree in English from Hangzhou Normal University and became a teacher. He taught English for 5 years. But the real turning point came in 1995, when he travelled to the United States for the first time. It was during that trip that he saw a computer for the first time in his life, and realised how completely the internet was about to change the world. He came back to China convinced that there was a massive opportunity sitting right in front of the country, and that nobody was moving fast enough to grab it. He started his first internet company, China Pages, which created websites for Chinese businesses. It failed. He tried again. That failed too. But in 1999, after a brief stint on a government-backed internet project in Beijing, Ma went back to Hangzhou for one more shot. He gathered 17 friends into a small apartment and pitched them a vision, an online marketplace connecting small Chinese manufacturers with buyers around the world. The group pooled together around $50,000, and Alibaba was born. The early days were brutal. China's internet infrastructure was barely functional. E-commerce was not a concept most people had even heard of. Ma himself could not write a single line of code. But he had something that none of the other tech founders in China had at the time, which was an instinct for understanding what ordinary people and small businesses actually needed. Instead of charging buyers for products the way most platforms did, Alibaba charged sellers a membership fee. This meant that small businesses could list their products for free and reach customers they could never have reached on their own. It was a simple idea, but it was revolutionary. Within months of launching, Alibaba had attracted members from all over the world. Goldman Sachs invested $5 million. SoftBank followed with $20 million. The company grew fast. By 2003, Ma launched Taobao, a consumer marketplace designed to compete directly with eBay in China. eBay offered to buy Taobao. Ma turned them down. Taobao captured over 67% of China's online marketplace by 2007. In 2014, Alibaba went public on the New York Stock Exchange and raised $25 billion, the largest initial public offering in American history at that time. The company's market value hit $168 billion on its first day. Ma became one of the richest men in Asia overnight, and eventually the richest person in all of China. Around this same period, Ma oversaw the creation of Ant Group, which started as Alipay, a digital payment system tied to Alibaba's marketplace. Over time, Ant evolved into something much larger than a payment app. It became a full financial services platform offering loans, insurance, and investment products to over 1 billion users. By 2020, Ant Group was preparing for what was supposed to be the largest initial public offering in human history, a dual listing in Shanghai and Hong Kong that would have raised $37 billion. Then, on October 24th, 2020, Jack Ma stepped onto a stage in Shanghai at an event called the Bund Finance Summit, and everything changed. Ma had been invited to speak at this gathering of Chinese bankers and regulators. He opened by describing himself as a semi-retired man sharing the views of a non-professional. But what he said next was anything but casual. He stood up and told the room that China's banks were operating with a pawnshop mentality. He said the entire financial system was a relic of the industrial age and needed to be rebuilt from the ground up. He argued that regulators were using yesterday's thinking to manage the future, and that good innovation should not be afraid of regulation, but it should absolutely be afraid of being controlled by people who do not understand how technology works. He compared the Chinese financial establishment to an old people's club that was strangling the innovation the country needed to survive. The speech was electric, it was bold, it was provocative, and it was exactly the kind of thing that had made Ma a celebrity for years. He had always been outspoken, he had always pushed boundaries, but this time he had pushed too far, and he pushed at exactly the wrong moment. Less than 2 weeks after the speech, the Shanghai Stock Exchange suspended Ant Group's initial public offering. The official reason was that Ant may not meet listing qualifications or disclosure requirements, but nobody in the business world believed that was the real reason. According to multiple reports, Ma's speech had angered senior officials within the Chinese government, and the suspension was seen by analysts as a direct and unmistakable signal from Beijing about who was in charge. The IPO was cancelled entirely. Ant Group was forced into a massive regulatory restructuring that took years to complete. Then the crackdown expanded. In April 2021, the Chinese government hit Alibaba with a $2.8 billion antitrust fine, the largest ever imposed on a Chinese tech company at that time. An investigation was opened into Ant Group's financial practices. Ma disappeared from public life almost entirely. He was not seen for months. His image was removed from television shows he had been involved with. Rumours circulated about his safety. When he finally resurfaced in January 2021, it was only through a video call at a charity event. Now here is the part of this story that people often get wrong, because it is easy to assume that Ma simply lost everything and faded into obscurity. The reality is more nuanced than that, but it is still devastating. Ma did lose control of Ant Group. That is a verified fact. In January 2023, Ant Group announced a restructuring of its governance that reduced Ma's indirect control from over 50% of the company down to just 6%. By January 2024, Ant Group formally completed the process of removing all controlling shareholders, including Ma, and replaced them with a group of 10 managers and staff who were given voting rights. Ma still owns a stake in Ant, but he no longer controls it in any meaningful sense. That is not speculation. That is what the company officially disclosed. As for Alibaba, Ma had actually stepped down as its chairman back in 2019, before the speech and the crackdown even happened. So technically, he was already out of the day-to-day leadership of Alibaba when things fell apart. But the crackdown still devastated the company. Alibaba lost roughly 75% of its market capitalization, from its peak valuation of $838 billion. In 2023, Alibaba announced it would split into 6 separate business units, each with its own leadership. The empire Ma built was being broken apart piece by piece. Ma's personal wealth tells the same story. At its peak in 2020, his fortune was valued at over $60 billion. By 2023, it had fallen to around $30 billion. The combined losses across Ant Group and Alibaba wiped out roughly $850 billion in value. Since the crackdown, Ma has lived a quieter life. He spent time in Japan, where he taught at a research institute at the University of Tokyo from 2023 to 2024. He has made only sporadic public appearances. In late 2024, he showed up at Ant Group's 20th anniversary celebration and spoke optimistically about the future of artificial intelligence. In early 2025, he appeared alongside other Chinese tech leaders at a meeting with President Xi Jinping, which many observers interpreted as a sign that Beijing was signaling a softer stance toward the tech sector. So did Jack Ma lose control of his companies? Yes. He lost control of Ant Group completely. He had already stepped back from Alibaba before the fall, but the regulatory crackdown gutted its value and forced it to restructure in ways he never would have chosen. Did he lose everything? No. He's still worth tens of billions of dollars, and he still holds stakes in both companies. But the version of Jack Ma who once stood at the top of one of the largest business empires in the world, who once dressed up as a punk rocker in front of 40,000 employees, who once dared to tell the Chinese financial system exactly what he thought of it, that version of Jack Ma is gone. One speech delivered on one afternoon in Shanghai made sure of that.